Good morning. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for joining our weekly show. Starting with attorney Milton Grime, the famous lawyer from LA who represented Rodney King. My crack research attorney, attorney Vanita Bank, who also has a master's in tax and does cybersecurity, one of the top lawyers in the country. But before I get started, we're close to a national election that will have far-reaching consequences for each of us for the next century. So I like to first thank a couple of people. First, starting with Attorney Banks. She came up with the idea that we should incorporate the Divine Nine. She is a sorority. And so we took that information and we passed it on to the Biden campaign. And I also added onto the platform the various professional organizations of Black, such as National Bar, National Medical. And we researched, got all their phone numbers, and all of the Black professional groups are now heavily involved with the Biden campaign. Now, the reason that's important is that in the 2016 presidential election, we had a relatively low African-American male voter turnout, and this was a strategy to increase the turnout. And so far, we keep our fingers crossed, they've done a phenomenal job. I'd like to thank each and every one of you, and I thank Attorney Banks for this wonderful idea. Now, the other thing I like to thank is the mayors in Florida. First, starting with Mayor Keith Babb of Pahokee. We entered into a collaboration to increase the voter turnout in Palm Beach County. And we also have Mayor Steve Wilson of Belle Glade and Mayor Joe Cowell of South Bay. And we got the Biden campaign to also sponsor an employer to help get out the vote. Now, the reason that was important, it was a close election in Florida last time, about 100,000 votes. And what occurred, I served as one of the general counsels that the area that was densely populated with African American had a very low voter turnout and less than 40%. So we had to get that number up to 75%. That 120,000 votes is based on these small cities. It was not a rocket science. And I also like to thank Mayor Terrell Hill of Palatka, Florida. Mayor Hill is also, he's a Kappa for you people that's keeping track of this, but he's also president of the Mayor's Association in Florida. And so I got him involved in the campaign with the Florida state chair. Our last name is Lee, no relationship to Nathaniel. And so I'm just happy that this is working out. And what you're seeing in Florida is this massive voter participation level. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you down in Florida who's listening to our show today, because with your effort, Florida is ground zero. Just keep working, sprint to the finish, and make sure you keep the vote coming and out, and don't stop, call 10 people, keep doing what you're doing. Now, having said that, Attorney Bank, we had some early discussion, and it's not about legal issues so much now, it's just about fighting determination. We had massive ideology in terms of voter suppression, but Americans, we've responded. We're saying the heck with voter suppression. It has motivated folks. We have record numbers of early voting. Let's keep it going. But you had some concern as to how did Trump get 17% of the African-American vote? How did that occur?
Well, Nathaniel, I believe that, well, first I want to just say that that President Trump did not get 17% of the African-American vote from African-American women, that African-American women have voted predominantly Democratic, and they have been mobilizing the grassroots efforts in the barbershops and churches and community groups and other organizations across our nation for many, many decades now. And so when we look at that 17% and predominantly comprised of African-American men, as well as young people, my thoughts or that is because that particular group believes that their votes don't matter, that their concerns are not reflected in either of the candidates. And so for that reason, they've elected in the past not to participate. We're seeing that changing as groups like the National Bar Association and the Divine Nine are reaching out to say that it's not so much the candidates, but it's about the issues. And the focus should be on what issues are important to you, and that voting is just the first step. And after that step is taken, then we have to ensure that we hold all of our elected officials accountable and that we have a seat at the table to ensure that changes are made. We also have to look at down ballots, and we have to look at the entire ballot to see what referendums are on the ballot that may impact my life. What judicial candidates are on the ballot. Many of us will never have an opportunity to have a case before the United States Supreme Court, although the focus on the Supreme Court is very important in terms of national issues that impact all of us locally. But there's a very true statement, which is all politics are local. And so we have to ensure that, for example, if we're concerned about our children's education, then we need to know who is the president of that school board, or who is the superintendent of the school district. And maybe I should decide to run for those seats to ensure that change is made.
One of the things, too, I want to everybody know, African-American females, women, voted for Hillary Clinton like 99%. It was African-American males at 83%. And that's something we're trying to fix. But Milton Grimes, Attorney Grimes, had some comments about this issue.
I recently read this week that 17% of the African-American men and only 4% of the African-American women that are voting for Trump, according to the statistic, which I take my hat off to the African-American women for being more insightful than us. But the African-American men, I understand from several op-eds I've read and articles, they are attracted to Trump the same old reasons we've been attracted to men all of our lives, and that is his image of success and his braggadocious attitude and flamboyant attitude, and he's a ladies' man. He's a successful businessman. He is an entrepreneur. He's a self-made man. And he's like a mayor that I once represented from Compton. He called himself the gangster mayor. He's the gangster president. So he used all these emotional attractions that attract African-American men, because we think we have to have many of those characteristics to succeed in life. And we don't get past that that image that he portrays in some of those regards. They're all lies. I mean, I shouldn't say they're all lies. I'm sure he's done some of those things that he brags about, but they're not things that I value. So that's the problem. That's the problem. We're just not taking the effort to see through who he really is. Some of us.
Attorney Banks?
As Milton stated, Black women vote predominantly Democrat and voted predominantly for Hillary Clinton. And young Black men, from what I've gleaned, their attraction to Trump is responding to their experience within the American political system, that for all of their lives, they've either been ignored or that they have a long history of the system being indifferent to their concerns. And again, there is a large effort to reach that group of young people and young Black men and Black men in general. And there's a reason why this, well, first, this election is the most consequential of our lifetime, and democracy is on the ballot, healthcare is on the ballot, COVID-19 is killing us, and in disproportionate rates, African Americans are 2 times more likely to contract COVID-19 and 3 times more likely to die from it. In addition to the deaths, many family members and seniors are shut in. For example, my mother fell and passed away after being shut in for over 6 months in our homes. And I'm sure that there are African American families that have experienced this same type of loss. We must ensure that we are educating Black men that we should honor our ancestors. John Lewis, who shed his blood to ensure that we had the right to vote. People like John Conyers and Adam Clayton Powell and Shirley Chisholm and Thurgood Marshall. We must make sure that we honor our ancestors by voting in this election, which is the most important of our lifetime.
Well, that's well said, because what has occurred is that the Biden campaign has a lead as we speak in most states that matter, but the polls have been tightening in different states from time to time. Now, that's because there is a lot of negative and misinformation being portrayed. If you watch these rallies, for example, there are these grandiose ideas of things that have occurred, but let's correct a few misconceptions. First of all, there was a website on the White House that said they had conquered the virus. If you look at the news every day, you'll see that there's about 1,000 folks dying every day. And so we know that's not true. The second thing is that one of the misconceptions that we've had dealt with the economy, and I want to clarify something very important. We had an economy when Trump took office that was doing phenomenal. Obama took us from near depression on the brink of economic collapse. Maybe people forgot that we're losing almost 1 million jobs a month based upon a meltdown of the national economy. So when he took over, they came up with this brilliant idea, the stimulus, and then we had unprecedented in America. We had what amount to 70 some straight months of job growth in America. Never happened before. And so we had an economy, unemployment was relatively humming along, doing great. Stock market had a phenomenal increase, went down below 7,000, went up to about 20,000, which was just phenomenal. And most people forgot about that. So what happened? So the new President Trump takes over, and what has he done? Well, we almost bankrupt again. The national debt now under this president is 25% of the total. So since this been a nation, our current federal deficit this year was about $3 trillion. Now think about that. The total amount of taxes collected was 3.7 trillion. We spent 4.7 trillion before we got into this pandemic. And now after this pandemic, rightly so, we had a lot of stimulus, and I'm thinking that when the numbers are done, that we're gonna probably be 3.1 to 3.4 trillion deficit. So when he takes over and say we're 20 trillion, by the time we get done, we're going to be up to 27, 28 trillion dollars deficit, at least 26. And so the point I'm making is that it's like this. And here's the issue about this economy, folks, that you need to understand. When we started this process, there was a massive tax decrease for wealthy people and corporations. That reduced the amount of taxes available. Revenue, income tax is how we pay our bills. The president, according to the report, pays $750 in federal taxes, not $1,000, but $750. Now think about that. A person who's so-called billionaire is paying less income tax than you're paying. It's insulting. But the point of this is that we got this massive deficit. So if you made, say, $100 a week and you spent $140 a week, you probably live pretty good for a while, but eventually gonna come crashing down. And that's what the United States economy did for the last 3 years. We were spending 25% more than what we're making. So when we gave away this massive tax cut, that's what occurred. Now, but the thing that bothers me most is the proliferation of these new laws. We saw recently this week, for example, a lot of people upset about the Reid case. That case got thrown out on the qualified immunity. So all these civil rights cases that are coming before the Trump judges is race discrimination, civil rights, they're gone. And so when you look at our court system, folks, it's a dramatic departure. It's got to be fixed because our premise of our democracy is that no man is above the law, but also justice should be blind, justice should be equal. We've seen a radical departure of that. So that's my comment about that. Now back to Attorney Grimes. What do we need to do moving forward to make sure that we keep this momentum? We got a few days left before this monumental election.
We got to call our friends and our relatives and each other and make sure that we take somebody to the voting booth, I suggest. We just cannot sit back and rest on our laurels here that we've done everything we can do. I think we got to fight this thing up till the booth close at 8 o'clock Tuesday evening.
Attorney Banks?
Every single day, we have to be doing something to ensure that we get this vote out. We're going to continue to see voter suppression tactics. We've seen them, the weakening of the post office. So again, if you received a mail-in ballot and you have not returned that ballot, do not put it in the mail at this time. Make sure that you deliver it to a voter mail-in box or deliver it to your election office. It's too late at this juncture to try to mail in an absentee ballot. We have to, and the National Bar Association has collaborated and is leading a coalition of over 7,000 lawyers to protect the vote in partnership with the lawyers of the Divine Nine sororities and fraternities, and organizations such as the Lawyers Committee has been beating back the lawsuits that the administration has been filing. There were two favorable rulings, one in Pennsylvania, which will enable voters whose mail-in ballot is postmarked by November 3rd to actually cast that ballot, and another favorable ruling, I believe, also in Michigan that will enable those votes to be counted.
Well, I think that's the most important thing we've discussed tonight. That is that, stand in line today, drop the ballot off, but make sure you make it happen today, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Don't wait until Tuesday. It could be a mass rush to vote on Tuesday? We don't know yet. We're in uncharted water now because of the pandemic. We don't know what may occur. So it's better that you vote today, vote tomorrow, vote Monday, but vote early. Call your friends, call your neighbors, call everybody, but make sure everybody you know within your orbit vote. Your children, your mother, your parents. This week we had a really heartfelt story. We had a 91-year-old, the Lancaster, Miss Rosalind Lancaster mother, 91 years old. She made she's AKA, she made a historic donation to the Biden campaign, and she have trouble walking. Well, she got a walker and she went in and voted. And I thought that was very symbolic. If a 90-year-old who can't walk to the polls to vote, you have no excuse.
Looking forward to Tuesday. I like to, for some reason, I don't like to early vote. I want to see my vote be cast. And I feel like I don't know, like I should be at the voting booth on Tuesday. I guess I'm just old fashioned.
You old school.
I voted.
How about you, Attorney Banks?
I didn't trust it, and so the mail-in ballot process. So I voted early last Saturday, and I have signed up to participate in calling voters every day between now and Election Day. I also plan to serve as a poll monitor on Election Day. The National Bar Association is still seeking poll monitors, and there's a shortage of poll monitors as well, particularly in the battleground states. However, over 670,000 citizens have signed up to be poll monitors, and about 1 million are needed. And so many poll workers historically have been our seniors, and 2/3 of our poll workers have been age 61 or older and fall into vulnerable groups. So we really need young people to step up and assist in working the polls and also serving as poll monitors as well.
What number can they contact if a person want to volunteer for that group that you're speaking about?
NationalBarAssociation.org and press election protection. You can volunteer to man a hotline, either serve as a captain of a hotline where you'll be calling voters. You can serve as a poll monitor on Election Day. You can also serve on a team that's actually preparing and filing litigation in response to the rampant voter suppression that we're seeing across the nation. I mentioned Pennsylvania as well as Michigan, where in those two states that if the ballots are postmarked by the deadline, each and every one of those ballots should be counted based on the litigation that the Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights has been filing across this nation to protect the vote.
Well, I'm old-fashioned too, Attorney Grimes. I went to stand in line the first day it became available here in Indianapolis. And to my surprise, people were lined up for 5 city blocks.
Oh, wow.
And so that didn't deter me. So we went the second day and people were lined up for 6 city blocks. And that didn't deter me. So I contacted my friend who's a Marion County clerk, and my whole family votes. So I called her up and say, look, I'm gonna vote early like I always do, but I ain't gonna stand in line for those 3 freaking hours. She said, I got a solution for you, Attorney Lee. that if you show up today at 4:30, you'll be able to vote, walk right in. I showed up at 4:30, I walked right in and voted. I discovered here in Indianapolis that when voting started at 8 o'clock, people are outside at 7 o'clock and they're in line all day. But at the end of the day, that enthusiasm is gone. And so between 4:15 and 5 o'clock, folks, here in Indy, nobody's there. It was the most amazing thing. And so I got to vote along with a record number of early voters here in Indianapolis. So thank you all.
Alvin Pittman and I think both of you know Alvin Pittman. We were poll monitors during Obama in 2008. And we were in Compton as monitors. And I drove us from LA. And we had our chests out and I felt like I was a real policeman because I can police the police. If they get too close in the debate, I'm telling them to leave. You follow me? So it was a great feeling, but the greatest feeling was driving back at 8 o'clock and hearing the news at about 8:10 that Obama is winning. And it looks like he's going to be the next president of the United States. And people were coming out in the street on Wilmington and Compton, Latinos and Blacks, who usually were fighting each other back in 2008. I'm serious, killing each other on a daily basis. Were embracing each other and hugging and hitting on my car, but not trying to damage it, just shouting and yelling and cheering. And that's one of the most celebrated moments, seriously, of my life that I will never forget. So it just felt like I was part of a revolution or a movement or something big. You follow me? And so I'm stuck with that emotion. And I know I won't repeat it. I won't repeat it with this one, but this might be a close celebration to that one. But that's how I am.
That's beautiful.
When that historic election result came in 2008.
Well, I was having dinner in the Hyatt Hotel in Chicago after having spent the day calling voters, and I was so proud to stand. In fact, this was the highlight, the penultimate moment for me, standing in Grant Park with thousands and thousands of diverse people from Chicago and around the world that had gathered on an unseasonably warm night in Chicago against the backdrop of the Chicago skyline as those two families took the stage, the Obama family and the Biden family. And that was the moment for me that after having attended both the inaugurations and all of the inaugural activities associated with President Obama's installation and inauguration, it was that moment in Grant Park with all those people, many in shorts because the weather was so unseasonably warm, and those two families coming onto the stage, where it was that one moment in time that I really sincerely believed that hope and change was coming to America.
Yeah, it was a moving moment.
It was just surreal.
I remember that time period. It was historic. And I remember the days afterwards. And I remember how the majority of America was so elated. It was a historic event. And then
the hate came.
Yeah, the hate, the Tea Party, and these groups formed, And the first thing that Mitch McConnell did said that we're going to make sure that this person is never a two-term president. And so they started plotting right away to destroy his legacy. But it's almost like God had a plan, because everything they tried to do to take him down, there's no scandal. None of his employees went to prison. He didn't get impeached. He was a model. He was a constitutional law professor. Unlike the current administration, we have the most corrupt presidency in the history of America. We have a president who all of his lawyers around him, they've been convicted of something, almost all of them. It's incredible that you can have such widespread corruption, not just the payoff of the sex scandal and things like that. I mean, just all kind of crazy stuff. And now we look at the fact that he doesn't turn over the tax return. We discovered that he paid $750 based upon some esoteric tax deduction that they think is fictitious. So, you know, we got a leader now that if he doesn't win, they're doing this mantra, you know, with Hillary Clinton, lock her up. And then they go to Minnesota or Michigan. They're talking about the governor of Michigan, lock her up. Well, guess what? The Trump people may all have something in common within the next 18 months. And so, you know, I don't know, Milton. I saw a lot of wrong.
The signature of what he stands for was put on his presidency by his wife when she stole Michelle Obama's acceptance speech. God, I mean, how can you respect a person? And they admitted to it. And they've been stealing and lying ever since he took office. He hasn't changed. And his woman is there with him doing the same thing.
Wow.
How can they give him a second term, Vanita?
Well, we're in the fight, and we've got to keep working every single day until the job is done.
Yeah.
And the American people, I believe, are exhausted, and that we've heard that directly from the administration that they've given up on battling this virus, placing all of their hopes on a vaccine, where the science states that a vaccine may at earliest be available mid next year. And we just heard Dr. Fauci state that we're likely not to be back to normal as a nation until 2022. So to say to the American people that we actually live at our own risk during this time is criminal. And it didn't have to be this way. Back in January, when the administration first discovered this virus, a national plan should have been established to work with the governors across the nation to give them what they needed. And that didn't happen. No state right now is trending in the right direction. We're seeing record hospitalizations. It's been reported that in the next week or so, that we may be seeing over 100,000 cases a day in the United States. And so we're in a very difficult trajectory. And as Dr. Fauci stated, there's going to be a whole lot of pain in this country, but if we don't follow the science, we need people to wear masks and vote securely and safely. We have National Bar Association members who are distributing PPE, if the lines are long in communities, we are delivering pizza and food so that people have nourishment and water. But we just have to, this is a marathon. These races have always been tight. And so we just have to make sure that we continue over the finish line and that we just do this and get this done.
I understand from a military friend of mine that who's pretty up the ladder there, that they have counseled travel for West Point people. And many schools say if you travel, you can't come back. You got to go by Zoom or virtual learning for the rest of the semester or quarters. And they expect a significant spike in infections over this holiday period, the next 2 months. Significant spike in infection, maybe higher than we've had. So just got to be extra careful, Nate.
Well, what I want to focus on too is that back to this turnout model. One of the things that I've been very encouraged by, at this point in time, if you're not voted, and Attorney Banks echoed this earlier, make sure you drop your ballot off or go vote in person, right? I don't want you to wait until Tuesday to vote. You know, go now, go today, go tomorrow, go Monday, but go vote. But if you got your mail-in ballots, it's too late to mail it in now. I had some weird thing happen to me involving the U.S. Post Office. We've been, since the pandemic, our goal was to send all our documents electronically. And it's a hard process because not everybody even have emails anymore. So every now and then we have to do things by snail mail. And so I had a letter that I want to send to a person that was 6 blocks from my office. And so it was a Friday and I didn't have their email address and I couldn't find it. So we dropped the letter in the mail on Friday. They received my letter that was 6 blocks away the following Friday.
I had the same thing happen here in LA.
Yeah. Now, meanwhile, we sent out about 6 letters that day to different parts of the country. And much to my surprise, the person in Florida, in Miami, got the letter on Monday. The person near Orlando, Florida, got the letter on Thursday. And so not a single pattern made any sense. And then one of them never got it at all. So I was thinking to myself that there's something fundamentally wrong with our US mail system. Then I find out that we got this idiot political hack that they appointed who actually went out to try to usurp the mail-in process. So he went out to slow down the mail. Okay. Now, the US mail has been a staple in our society forever. So now you get a political hack who is a big political donor heads up the post office. So the point of this is make sure that you walk, run, ride, hitchhike, Uber, Lyft, whatever you need to do, but go out and vote in person. You got a few more days of voting. If we can have 90-year-old people who can't walk, get in walkers to walk to vote, you get off your posterior and get in line and vote. Make sure you do that. And this is a serious process. I can't emphasize enough. When we see what is happening to our society, we see this pandemic. Now, one other thing too, I need to talk about this pandemic that's something that's been largely overlooked. I watched the debate, and so our current president takes credit for shutting down the national economy and prevent people from coming to the country. That's a false narrative. Let me explain what the problem is with that statement. We've had about 10 pandemics in the last 20 plus years. And when Obama was in office, we had Ebola, for example, and we had 2 Americans die, and there was a big Republican outrage about 2 Americans. but they were able to restrict it over to a foreign country with the CIA. We cut it off, we recognized it, and nobody came in the country but those 2 sick people that died. And we kept it confined to that one country. It was brilliant. We got rid of that component of the CIA, but here was the big mistake that this administration made. When they shut down the country, you had thousands and thousands of Americans rush back into the United States. I was looking at the airport when there was this mass crowd of people all bunched together at these airports. Thousands of people all came back in. Not a single person got tested. So when we did this attempt to shut down the country, Americans who were infected brought the disease into the USA because we did not have, nobody's thought about the fact that if there's a pandemic, you need to control the people that come back in the country, including Americans. And because there was no testing, we caused this virus to spread by this dumb management of a crisis. And that's how it spread so fast. It didn't spread because the people in Wuhan, China, didn't come in the United States. You know, everybody thinking that's not what happened. You have to get passports and stuff like that. It was Americans that came back in this country. And America didn't even know they were infected because the government did not set up the testing mechanism. We still don't have sufficient testing mechanism today. We don't have contact tracing. All these are important variables in order to make it safe and secure. And so don't forget though, if you want a person, you get symptoms, look out for your neighbors. Don't go around other folks if you have a fever, you have a cough, get tested right away. Make sure you don't infect your friends or your neighbor. And particularly as we go forward, past this election to the holidays, I know that with Attorney Banks talked about the problem with her mother. Well, we each have family members that we can expose. Now, but in the vote process, make sure you wear your mask, keep your distance, wash your hands, wear protective clothing. Don't forget. Now, Attorney Banks, any additional words of wisdom for our guests?
If you experience any problems when you attempt to vote, call the following number. This is a very important hotline that you should ensure is in your phone contacts. It is 1-866-R-VOTE. That is 1-866-687-8683. And we have to expect continued chaos, attempts to confuse and intimidate voters, but we should not be deterred by that. And we should, again, as Attorney Lee stated, if you can vote early, please do that. If you can vote in person safely, that would be preferred. If not, drop your ballot off at a drop box or at your election office. One of the questions that we have to ask is, why are so many powerful people trying to suppress the vote and intimidate voters? And the answer is that our power is our vote, and our vote is our power. And when we vote, we win. Thank you, Attorney Lee.
Well said, Attorney Grimes.
Well, I think it's obvious we cannot afford another 4 years of this man in office. There's no telling where this country may be if that happens. So we have to make sure that does not happen. As Banks just said, and as you've said, we got to take every effort within our power to vote the next, 7 days, 6 days, 5 days we have left. We got to take every effort to go and vote. And we got to ask people if they need rides. We have to assist one another to go and vote. A lot of people do not have rides, and still do not have a way of getting to their voting booth. So we got to, for once in our lives, go and ask if people need help. So let's get out the vote and let's vote. There's nothing else we can do.
If you haven't
Our
voted yet,
democracy depends on it.
Yeah.
if you haven't voted today, after you listen to the show, go out and vote. If you haven't voted, get your name to vote on Sunday and Monday. You only got a few days left. But when we say you take it serious, this is as serious as it gets. It's not just democracy. The whole thing is a way of life. In essence, one set of leadership has said, ignore this pandemic. It has resulted in over 230,000 dead Americans. That number is expected to double over the next 4 months. And so do you get competent people in office that have a plan to eradicate the problem? Because what you're voting for now is a life that you say may be your own. This is serious. This is not a joke. I regularly tell people when they think that this pandemic is not real, visit your local coroner's office. Look at all the dead bodies. They're not fake. It's a real deal. You can't look at any newspaper anywhere and not see a larger group of people in the obituary section. That's not fake, that's real. So make sure you go out and vote. And thank you for listening to us today. And God bless and keep each and every one of you. We talk to you again next Saturday. Hopefully we have a better outcome than this election that we did in 2016. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.